Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to this preparatory workshop for Media Creative Aptitude Test by Media and Entertainment Skills Council. Yes, Creative Warrior Programs wants you to be prepared for this MECAT and get the maximum possible benefit out of it. So we are doing this workshop for you all. Now, today we are talking about filmmaking. It's a workshop on filmmaking and it's by Ayjo's Nova, a premium institution for filmmaking. And here today we have an eminent speaker, Mr. Krishnadev Menon. He is a CA inter turned filmmaker who pursued film studies at Cochin Media School. This is a true example of how you follow your passion. He is an experienced film professional with work experience in over 25 projects, comprising of feature films, short films, ad films, and documentaries. He has directed 3 short films that have been critically acclaimed and have been screened at film festivals like IDSFFK in 2017. He has been teaching cinema for 4 years with student base from different parts of the country. So let's invite Mr. Menon here for this workshop. Mr. Menon, you're most welcome.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Pooja.
So today it's a different topic. We were talking about technical aspects. We have done VFX, we have done animation, and today we are on the favorite topic of all, filmmaking. So the session is all over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. So good evening, all. I'm here to talk about filmmaking, or rather the practical aspects in filmmaking, because I understand, a big chunk of the people who are listening to us today are going to look into filmmaking as a career prospect, or rather than calling it a career prospect, let me call it as your life prospect, something which you want to do with your life. So I'm going to get started with what filmmaking is broadly, and then towards the end, we'll give you a small idea as to what can be done or with what you learn out of filmmaking. So just give me a moment to just share my screen. Ma'am, is my screen?
Yes, sir.
Is my screen visible?
Not yet.
Just a moment.
It happens sometime. We face some technical issue. Let me check if there is something at the back end. No, I'm sure you are. You must be able to share the screen.
Okay.
So, aspect of filmmaking will be discussed in this session today. For all the aspirants who are actually looking forward to make career as a filmmaker. Are you able to share the screen, sir?
Let me just check.
So yes, any questions you can send in the chat window and we'll be happy to answer your questions.
Ma'am, I think there
You're
is
not able to share the screen?
some problem.
Okay. So if there's a presentation, maybe I can try to help you if you'll share. So let me do this. Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah.
Yes, now we can see your desktop. It's visible now.
Okay. Sorry about the delay. Thank you, ma'am. Yeah. So speaking of filmmaking, we are going to talk about very broad aspects of filmmaking, how you go about it, no, what happens before a film comes to life on screen and the way we see them on theaters or on these days in our electronic devices. So I've named it realms of filmmaking. So let's begin with it. What is filmmaking? So if I ask you right now, what is filmmaking with the level of understanding that we have right now, we might say it is it's a process of making a motion picture, and it includes writing, shooting, editing, giving music, acting. So this is a broad understanding. It's a very layman's understanding. But from there, from there, where we intend to go is to know what it really is. So what filmmaking really is of course it's a process of making a motion picture, but a slight difference. It's a very elaborate process of making a motion picture, and it starts with an idea, which most of you might have right now in your minds, and ends only at the point where the first preview of the film is seen. Because till then, things keep changing, things keep popping up in your mind. The director, the producer, the sound designer, everything, everybody comes up with ideas, pitch in their own bit. Until the point it's out of their hands, the film is getting made. And broadly, to make the film the way that we see on film on screens, there are three processes or three stages, namely pre-production, production, and post-production. So what is production? Production is the whole project on the whole, and it is interchangeably used with the term that we always say as shooting. Even in the term shooting is what we call as production. So pre-production is nothing but everything that happens before the filming begins or the shooting begins. And what happens in the pre-production stage is a guy or a girl called a scriptwriter comes up with a script that he or she has and goes to the person that we know as a producer. So the producer listens to the script and decides whether he's going ahead with the production or not. That is how ideally it happens. So once the producer says, I like the script, I find a certain level of viability with the script. I like what you've come up with. Next thing is the writer who has written the script, which is in a textual form, and the producer who's ready to pitch in, to switch on the project. They have to come up and decide who can make these texts into images, who can bring life to this, who can say a story out of it, or who can put across a perspective into it. And that guy or that girl is called the director. So what happens is the writer and the producer come together and decide who can direct. And once these three people are on board, the project is greenlit, we say, which means the project is on to take off. And this taking off starts with the pre-production, and the pre-production broadly, very broadly, happens in 9 stages or 9 steps. So pre-production is the activity before the filming starts. So the 9 stages. So once the director comes in, what happens is he's the person who's going to make the written form of the script into images, who's going to to make a motion picture out of it, as we said. So what happens is the director and the script writer is the person who has written it. So he'll have a lot of things to say. The producer will have a lot of operational aspects to think about, because he is the one who is going to be heading the whole project. So they all come together and lock the script, because these three people matter the most, of which the director becomes the captain. He is the key person. So once he comes in, locking the script is an important aspect. So once they lock the script, what happens is, okay, we three are in, who all should be into the team, right? So they crew up, they decide on the crew, the people who are going to be technically involved in making the film. Let's say the cinematographer, the editor, the sound designer, the VFX artist. All right. So, who are we going to bring in into the production team? It's an elaborate process which is going to be decided step by step. So the crewing up is the involvement of the main technicians that involved in making the film. So what happens later on is this cinematographer, a man called the cinematographer, comes in, because he is the person who's going to do the filming part and envision or no bring out the vision that the director has in mind. So what happens is director and the cinematographer, they come together, they sit, read the script scene by scene and decide how do we visualize it. What is it that we can do to visualize each scene and on totality the film, so that we put the emotion and the right perspective into it. And why this happens in the presence of a cinematographer is the shot duration is dependent on a lot of other variables, which we're going to discuss later on as we go by. Next, what happens is we have the script with us. We have the story, the complete beginning, middle, and the end as to what is going to happen. So once we have the script with us, we know what kind of locations we need, whether a film is happening in Mumbai or whether the film is happening in Trivandrum or whether the film is happening in London. If it's in London, where is it happening? What kind of a setup is it happening? Or if it is in Mumbai, is it happening in South Bombay, which is a posh place, or a Dharavi, which is a little more, downtown kind of a place, right? So the script gives you all the information that you need to work on in your pre-production stage. And location recce, or visiting the location and finalizing on a location, is something that is very important, and it can be done only after you have crewed up. Because to locate to visit the location, you are accompanied by a few people that are part of your crew. I'm going to come elaborately to these points after this. I'm just quickly going through. Then we decide on what equipments we need, because only after you decide your location you can do that, right? Then after a few of these steps have been done, after these 4-5 steps have been done, you might be wondering, why is budgeting so low here in uh, the list? But budgeting comes only at this point because yes, budgeting is an estimation, but we come to know only of a fair amount of accuracy only at this point. But we don't wait till the end, so we start deciding, okay, this could be the total budget, because the producer will already have that in mind, because he has to arrange for the finances. Next comes getting permissions and taking insurance for the crew, for the equipments, for a lot of other things. Because only once you get permission for the locations that you've decided, you can go ahead with the shoot. Then we decide who all are going to be giving life to the characters that we have written, because they need to be chosen well in advance, and they have to be rehearsing so that we go into the shoot well prepared. And in the end, we do something called a scheduling, where we decide from day one to the last day how we go about the shoot. All right. So locking the script, as we discussed, the writer, director, and the producer come into an agreement with regard to the script. And the director is the last person of these three who come into the picture, and he or she has to come up with a solid perspective that how we want to shoot this film. Because the director has to perspective that he or she has. Hello, one, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Are my slides moving?
It's showing me realms of filmmaking.
Okay. Because I've moved on to the slides.
Just try again, sir.
Is it still there?
Yes, sir.
Still on the
Yes, if you can share the document with me, maybe I can,
Sure.
I can share the screen.
Okay. Mine is on Keynote, so I'll quickly convert it into a PDF and send you.
Either way.
Okay, so you have a number?
I'll quickly take your number. I'll send you a message.
Okay, 94951.
No, don't give it here, sir. We are live. Or send it in the chat window, please. Or even you can attach a file here in this chat window and so I can't hear you. Are you talking?
No, I'm muted. I'm sending the file.
Sure, sir.
Have you received it now? Ma'am, did you receive it?
Yes, sir. I'm just loading it and then I'll open it.
Okay.
It's quite a heavy file.
It's PDF, it's a 30 MB.
Sure, so just a couple of minutes more and then we'll proceed with our presentation. It's just loading. So maybe you can try if it's working from your end again. Maybe reshare your file and see if that works. I'm open it. Just a minute.
Can you see now?
Let me check. Yes, your slide, it's moving now.
Okay, you're seeing the locking the script wala slide?
I am just a minute. So my system, yes, it's locking the script and it shows me that it's slide number 6.
Okay.
So I think it's working from your side, so I don't need to share it.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you. All over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, really sorry about the delay.
No worries.
Yeah. So moving on to the crewing up part. So talking about the crew, we already have these 3 people on board: the scriptwriter, the producer, and the director are on board, and they decide who is going to be the cinematographer, editor, the production designer. Production designer is a term that is used to connote the professional who kind of manages an art director, the costume artist, and the hair and makeup artist. So, normally, sometimes in films which are of a little smaller scale, you see these 3 categories separately. So, if you see a production designer, he is the person who holds the anchor in deciding the look and feel of the film when it comes to collaborating with the art director, the costumer, and the hair maker. And then comes the sound designer, another big and huge responsibility in making a film. And he is also reported to by a lot of other people under him. Then comes a VFX supervisor and a DI artist. So, moving on, the next stage is the shot division and the location tracking. Okay, so shot division is dividing the script into shots. It's as simple as that in understanding it. But what happens is it has got a lot of other variables that needs to be taken into consideration, because you will not be able to divide your shots as you please, because if your film is of a lower scale, you will not be having a lot of equipments to play with, or you might not have grand sets to move your equipments around, move your camera around. So that is where division of shots come in at only the third or fourth stage after locking the script. So unless the script is locked, you can't go for a shot division, and it is done by these 2 people. The director and the cinematographer are involved when it comes to deciding the shots. Then comes the location recce. So location recce is something that is to be done by the people who are involved at this stage. So the chief technicians, when I say, definitely it involves the director and the cinematographer. Then comes a very key person who has to visit the locations. He is the sound designer. In fact, to be more specific, one of the members of his team called the sound recordist, because the viability of the location for recording sounds is a very important factor when it comes to making films. You might not see an extremely high usage of sound. When I say sound, I don't mean music. Music is just one of the parts of the sound. I mean the live ambient sounds, the dialogues that are recorded on set, on location. So that is something that is very important, and that has to be decided only by taking a sound recordist with you, because unless he comes in, he's not going to be able to make you're not going to get an idea as to whether this place is sound friendly. Because you go, you look at the location, the visuals are beautiful, the cinematographer says great, let's go for this, but 100 meters down the place a construction might be ongoing, which is not happy news for a sound recordist, and in turn not a happy news for you as a filmmaker or as a director, if you're a director of the a project. So a sound recordist has to come with you. Then comes equipment hiring. Why is equipment hiring such an important part? One, it involves money, obviously. Two, you don't need all the equipments for all the films, or you don't need a high-end camera if you are making a low scale of a film. You need a basic functionality. You don't need a Arri Alexa. You might be able to do it with a Lumix S1H. So what I'm trying to say is, equipment hiring is a very big cost unit when it comes to a film. So what equipment you need has to be decided only at a point where you're sure you need a certain number of equipments. So you don't need a crane if you are shooting something in a hut. or you don't need a track and trolley if you are shooting something inside a confession box or inside a coffin. So depending on your locations, depending on your space, you call for the equipments on the days that you need them. So I hope you recognize these equipments. No, one is a red camera, one is what we call as a track and trolley, where you see the movement shots moving in and moving away and all that. And then comes the crane, which gives you a more three-dimensional kind of a movement. So these are just very basic three equipments that I've kept. There are a lot more other equipments which we use to make films. So the point here is equipment hiring can be decided only after you decide one, your cinematographer, two, your locations, because unless you are sure that a certain location is friendly for a certain equipment, you cannot decide on the equipment that you need. Then comes, see, it's based on the location and the shots designed. Then comes our budgeting part. So budgeting is nothing but an estimation of the total cost of production, individual head wise. You will have a lot of heads that you consider under the cost of production. I'm not going to go elaborately into it, but it's broadly bifurcated into two. They are called above the line costs and below the line costs. So there is a very imaginary, arbitrary line that we draw when we do budgeting, of which the items that come above the line are called above the line items and below are below the line items. The above the line items are mostly the expenses that are involved in the pre-production stage. So you already have a script for which you have to pay money, right? You have a director. You also have the main actor. So most of the times you have the main actor who is on board. No, I'm switching on my project with Tom Cruise or Tom Hanks or Shah Rukh Khan or a Kamal Hassan. So that would be decided. So mostly the key protagonist characters might be decided. So their expenses, the director's fees, the scriptwriter's fees, the rights for the scriptwriter, the product producer's fees, and all that come above the line, and rest everything comes below the line. So once you have decided on the locations and once you have decided on the equipments, you are good to go, but your production unit is not good to go because they have a lot of other responsibilities to take care of before the production is on. So for a smooth shoot, you can't just barge into a location and shoot. You need a permission, be it a public place or be it a private place like a house. You got to get their permission and you got to confirm the availability and then decide that the shoot is good to go on that particular date. You have to then you have to indemnify your losses. Matlab, you have to ensure you have a lot of heavy investments and expenses involved. The camera that you saw a couple of slides ago, the red thing, no, it costs crores. If you with a lens on it, it costs crores. So you got to insurance your equipment, you got to insurance your team, because there are a lot of activities that happen on a film set that are risky in nature. You have fights, you have blasts, you have explosions, you have adventurous things happening in and out of your scenes. So you have to indemnify your financial losses, both for yourself as a producer and for the crew members. So insurance and permission are two very important operational aspects for conducting of a smooth shoot. One small accident can take your shoot for a ride, or one problem from the public saying that no, it's a problem for us. You're creating havoc. You are making our life uncomfortable. You've not taken permission for this. This can make your life difficult. Then comes casting and rehearsal. This is something that happens parallelly with all these steps that we have been talking about, because once you know your script and once you know the scale of your project, there's nothing that stops you from deciding or no taking steps towards deciding on your actors. So this is something that happens in tandem. There is always an associate director and his assistant who works on casting, calling for auditions, and working things parallelly as you go by. So the main cast, as I told you earlier, the above the line guys, they would already be decided, mostly be decided, unless something happens and in between and something is changed, because they're always a point for the film to be marketed upon. So the project will be on mostly when somebody, a big name is associated to it in some way, be it a technician or be it an actor, be it a director or an actor. So the rest of the artists are cast as you go by before we end the pre-production, because as I said, it happens parallelly. So you have everything else set up, because you are actually right now good to go to make the film, because you know how much you're going to spend on it, you know what are the equipments that you need, you know what are the locations that you need and how available they are, you know your actors, you have decided on your shots, you have crewed up, so everything is done. Next is this process of scheduling, where you decide what is going to be shot when. So you're going to structure your shoot scene by scene, date by date. That is done in the last stage. This is the last stage. Once this is done, we are good to go. All right. Because you have the availability of everything with you. Your actor availability is with you, the dates that they are available on, the dates that you need certain equipment, the dates that your locations are available on, the money that you have with you to go ahead and shoot, because you have to decide the number of days that you're going to shoot before you plan your shoot. So scheduling plays a role in that way. And the main two things that you have to think when you're doing the scheduling is, as we spoke now, time and money. When we say time, we decide the number of days that we are going to shoot, and within those number of days, we have to manage rest the rest of the variables, namely the availability of the equipment, the availability of the actors, the availability of the locations, everything, and the money that we can spend on the project. Not every project is Bahubali. So, just giving you a glimpse of who a cinematographer is, because he's a very key person before we go to the next stage called the production stage. I hope my slides are moving.
Yes, sir. Cinematographer slide is open.
Yeah. So cinematographer is after the three people in the beginning are associated. The most important person that joins the crew after that is the cinematographer, because it's through his eyes that you are going to see the director's vision. So it is a very close association between a cinematographer and a director that ends in a successful production. So they collaborate at different levels. Initially, as we spoke, they collaborate in when they're deciding the shots. Then during the production or the shooting, as you know it. Then in the last, after the shoot is done, after the production is done, in the post-production stage, there is something called as color grading, where the visuals that are shot by the cinematographer are graded and manipulated for their colors by somebody called as a digital intermediate artist, to which we'll come on later. So basically, these two people, these two, no, these two men, these two ladies, these two people are supposed to have a very solid relationship. It should be nothing short of a perfect marriage, because they start breaking up, you have a problem with your production. Your production will go for a toss. You will have a very difficult time picturizing what you had in mind the way you want it. So going forward, who's a producer? This is a very key important, one of the most important persons in a film, because you might have noticed when the best picture category is called for, let us say the Oscars, you always see the producer going up with the director, and he doesn't go up because as our normal Indian understanding goes, not because he spends money for the film. That is not his job. That is not his only job. That is just one of the multitudes of jobs that a producer does, because he is the operational head of the project. If I am the producer of the film, my intention is to make sure that the film happens, not that money comes into the film. Money coming into the film is just one aspect of it. Everything that we read in the pre-production stage, everything operational, getting permissions, visiting locations, making the life of the creative people easy, everything comes down to the production team, which is headed by the producer. So there are three key roles for the producer in that category, in that regard, because as he takes care of the operational parts, the roles that he takes care of has its influence or impact in the creative part. Namely, one, he has to pick the right director. because he's the one who decides, the producer is the one who decides what scale the project is viable on. Can I make this film a Bahubali, or should I make it a Piku, or should I make it a sexy Durga? At what scale should I work it? So the director decides, the right director, sorry, the producer decides, should decide, should play a role in picking the right director who can pull off the project for the genre that the script is on and the scale that the script is in. Next, he has to be the utmost support system that takes care and safeguards the director's vision. His job is to do all that is necessary to make sure that the director's vision goes on track, of which the third point becomes the most important part, which producers tend to do sometimes, but it is also said that those are days, things of the past. And the third point is, should try not to be the director. Sorry, I have a mistake there. Not try to be the director. Try not to be the director. So the producer will have all the temptations to correct the director, come up with another vision that he would have, which he might think is better for the director and which he might be right also about. But it's the director's vision. Director is the captain of the ship, the creative half of the ship. So there is no encroaching into that, right? There's a reason why the director's name has the biggest font size on a poster, if you have seen a lot of our Indian movies. Now we go into the second aspect, the aspect of making the film, which is the production. So production is nothing but the principal photography of the film. It starts immediately after the pre-production is done, which means the scheduling is done, right? And all the technicians, everybody, the art director, the costumer, the hair, makeup, the cinematographer, the writer, the production team, everybody comes together for a certain number of days as per schedule, and they work like a mission to make sure that whatever is written in the script and locked is made into a reality in the form of the footage that they shoot, right? So production is as it's as simple as that. Once the pre-production is as elaborate as we discussed, all right? So I'll show you just a couple of pictures of production, like the which is something that you've not seen. So a couple of these are from my own productions. This is a short film that we shot for one of the OTT platforms down here. So, for each and every shot, the effort that goes in is immense. The time that is taken is immense, right? So, I think there is a video. I hope it can play. Ma'am, please let me know if it is not playing. I'm going to play it right now.
Awesome.
So this was a very small. This was a single shot shot in the film, for which we needed a certain timing at which people have to work. A light has to be put up in the end. Plus, the actor has to say a dialogue, and at a certain point in the dialogue, the light is switched on in the corridor, which has to hit the actor's face, and he has to give a reaction. So this is not just an actor's job to look into and give his reactions according to the cue. There was I don't know if the sound was audible for you. There was an AD sitting by the side of the actor, who is listening to the dialogue that the actor says, and at a point calls for the light, and the light is switched on, and he gives a reaction to it, right? So this is one, and then you see the camera movement and the camera positions. The camera is a top angle shot on a crane, and it moves according to the actor's movement. And when a cue is given to the light is switched on, and he gives a reaction, right? So it is a very smooth oiled machinery that happens shot by shot when it comes to making a film. So moving on, post production. Post production starts where the production ends. Once we are done with the 40 day shoot of a feature film or a 4-day shoot of a short film, the point that production ends, the post production starts. And post production includes mainly these categories, editing, sound designing, dubbing, music recording, visual effects, and color grading. So these are very broad, very broadly put categories. So let us just take a look at the key people involved once more, and who all are involved in the post-production stage. So you can see here, from the editor down, sound designer, VFX supervisor, and the DI artist. These four people come into play in the third half of the production, which is post-production, third slot of the production, called as post-production. Ideally, the sound designer also plays a role right from pre-production because he has a say when it comes to a lot of storytelling ideas by using sound. But mostly his job comes after the film is shot with regard to creating and recreating the sounds and getting the voices dubbed, placing them properly, collaborating with the music director, and a lot of other things. So, editor. Who's an editor? We all know what an editor does. Undoubtedly, he's the person after the film is shot. What we get, or what we in a layman's term call as footage, is what we technically call as rushes, or in the industry we call it as rushes. So he is the person who shapes the rushes into the film has to come out, right? So he works with the footages. He knows the scenes. He knows the script. He puts it together. He weaves them together. He juxtaposes them and adds meaning and value as the script demands. Okay, so then everything. So the what happens is director is editor is somebody to whose table everything comes back to, because there are a lot of because there will be footages that need interference of a VFX artist. So those footages go to the VFX person, and it'll come back to the editor, and he places them where the footage is supposed to be placed. He, at the same time, once the editing cut is final, that version goes to the sound designer. They start doing all the sound related activities like mixing, foley, adding music, dubbing, and everything. And these tracks again come back to the editor's table, and he lays them, or she lays them on, lays the audio tracks, and the title designer sends the title across to the editor. Again, it's laid at the editor's table, and everything basically comes back to the edit table, right? So that's he's editor is a very important person when it comes to managing the creative part of the shoot. It's everything, it's like a headquarters. It comes back to that place. Even the director spends a lot of time with the editor in the post-production stage. Sound designing. So once the editor edits the footages and there is a proper progression which conveys the emotion and the perspective of the script, the edit is logged. Visually, the edit is logged, and it is sent across to the different aspects of different people who are involved with the sound designers team. Right. So he is the one who designs the soundscape of the film. Ideally, sound designer is somebody who even manufactures and designs different kinds of sounds. So he is whom we call as sound designer. And at the same time, he's also one who decides at what intensity which sound has to be laid where, what sound comes where, whether we need a music there or not. Ideal situation is that. And he works with the Foley artists. Foley artists are artists who create the sounds that we see on the screen within a studio. For example, the sounds of a person walking through a wooden surface. The sounds are generated, created inside a studio, in a Foley studio, on a wooden surface with shoes made to walk through the surface. So sounds are created that way. They are called Foley artists who fake or create a make-believe version of the sound that you see on screen. Mixing engineers are people who mix the sounds that are created and lay them properly in the right intensity at the right place, giving the right perspective, right? And sound editors are again people who know they again collaborate with the mixing engineers and the Foley artists with the tracks and the files that they get, and decide the length of the sound of the tracks, the laying of them, the fine tuning of them. And then comes the music director who complements the sounds that have been made, the images that have been shot with the music he or she makes. So that's how it happens. So that this is broadly the design part of sound, how sound works when it comes to making a film. So what you get in front of you as a sound designer is just a muted version of the film with just the cuts made at the right place. Rest of the magic is made by the sound team, which is so very understated in our industry. No, they just don't get their due regard. Whereas they give life to the 50% of the film, right? So people who are looking at filmmaking, sound is something that is extremely unexplored in our films. Then comes the DI artist. So DI artist is one person to whom again the edited version goes, and he manipulates the color from the raw footage that he gets. So he gets all the footages that have been shot. He gets the edited version from the final version from the editor's table, and he sits on those shots along with whom? The cinematographer, and manipulates the color according to the look and feel and the tone and the mood that the cinematographer and director has agreed upon. Cinematographer will be the conveying factor for that, and he renders the final output of the film after the color grading, because the our final output these days sometimes are taken from the DI artist's table as well, because you don't want to render the footage again and again. It brings down the quality. Once the color grading is done, actually your film is ready, because your soundtracks are ready, your edited version is ready, your titles are ready. Just the color grading is ready, and nothing stops you from coming out with the final film. So post production ends with this person. So I'll show you. If I showed you a behind the scenes of video of my production, this is a screenshot of the shot that was taken using that in that video. So this is how it looked before DI. So this is the version that we had to send for DI, and this is how it looks after DI. So this is the difference that a digital intermediate artist brings to the table. I hope you can see the difference. So this is the difference that the image gets after a DI lays his hands on them. And this is how the final footage looks like. I'll just play it. I hope it plays. I hope it played. I'll play it once again. Forget the dialogues, it's in Malayalam. But the effort that was taken for that shot, it comes out like this. So moving on, I'm almost coming towards the end of the so-called lecture part of this thing. But we talked about the pre-production, production, post-production, the script writer, the director, and the producer coming together. They decide to go ahead with the project. They crew up. They go through the elaborate process of pre-production. Then they bring in everybody together and they do the production. And then comes a post-production where the editor stitches the footages together, lays them in the right in collaboration with the director, the way he wants, the way editor looks at it. Sound designer comes up with the sounds, gives life to the audio part of the film, which is as important as the visual part. Then VFX, if required, comes into play. Then comes our DI artist, right? So all this all this pain, all this elaboration to make a film, right? So the primary question that one needs to ask, especially students who are going to do to make films, they got to ask this very important question as to why am I doing it? Why is Rajamouli making a Bahubali, or why is Alijojo Spellisheri making a Jallikattu? The answer is very simple, but it is one of the most foundational questions you got to ask yourself. The answer is because I have something to say. Unless I don't have something to say, I cannot communicate that through the audio visual medium that I know called as filmmaking. I have to tell you something, and that's the best way that I know is through my films. It's only when somebody like Adu Gopalakrishnan felt that he came up with a film called Eli Pataya. Or it's only when somebody like Spielberg felt that he came up with a film called Schindler's List. So unless you have something solid to say, you will not be able to say something effectively, right? So it all begins with this, where no, I am ending my presentation with the word beginning, because no, we are going to begin something, because we all, most of you, I'm sure, will have something like an idea or a story in your mind. Correct? You have something in your mind, and you want to say something out of it. Correct? That is what is making you, and you want to say that in the audio visual spatio temporal way that we call as cinema. And no, the best way to do that is by making a film. And just to give you a very small idea as to what a story is, in case you're wondering what a story is. No, so this is what you would be having in your mind. You have a lot of a narrative of events, or no, events that are happening in your mind, which you know you want to convey. You might be having an image in your mind, or you might be having an action or a sound which in your mind. And there must be something that you want to say, which we discussed earlier. You want something to say, and the story is a tool that helps you to say, right? You decide uh, to say the personal trauma or the personal journey of three people who decide to go on a vacation in Spain. That is when you decide to do Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara, right? Or you want to say the pain that a person born and brought up in a slum undergoes to put out the art or the talent that he has in his mind when it comes to rapping, right? Gully Boy comes out of that. So the story is a tool that you have in your mind to tell the idea that you have, the thing that you want to say, right? So please dust up your stories and come learn cinema, because cinema is not something that comes to you like, drawing or singing. Even if somebody feels like they have a talent in singing, they go formally and learn it, right? There is nothing, as Nasiruddin Shah famously put it, there is nothing metaphysical about acting. I would say there is nothing metaphysical about any aspect of filmmaking. It's life, it's observation in life, and applying them the way you learn cinema in a formal way. From there, you take it across, take it forward. You know the rules, learn the craft, you learn the basics, you learn the context where cinema stands 105 years now down the line. From there, you take it forward to the 106th year, right? So there is nothing better to learn cinema deeper than practicing it and learning it formally. That's on that note, I am ending my presentation. Thank you. I hope this was of some importance or some significance to the people who are looking up to taking up cinema as their career and who are preparing for MCAT. Just follow your mind, say whatever stories that you want to say through this great art form. So I think I'll end it there, Pooja ma'am.
Sure, sir.
And sorry it is in between.
No worries, sir. That's how, sometimes we face issues with the technologies. These are the pros and cons. But the beautiful part is sitting at a different geographical region. We are talking and we are guiding students about a beautiful process of filmmaking. So it's really amazing. So thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. I'd really like to know, do you see the prospects as a filmmaker? Do you see if a 12th standard or a undergrad wants to be a filmmaker after undergoing through the course, there are ample career opportunities?
Ample career opportunities, yes. Being honest with myself, let me put it this way. If you really want to do something out of what you learned through filmmaking, now is the best time. No, now is a struggling time, but now is the best time. You capitalize it right now, you are going to be there, because the world has opened up a whole new Pandora's box in the form of OTTs and the online platforms, which were not so accessible for us. So, be it the content or creating the content, you have multiple platforms right now to put across your film. because nothing prevents you. See, you have, as I said, you have an idea, you have a 4-minute idea, you execute it. You don't need a big technical perfection for it, right? If you are a learner, you don't need it. If you have learned also, sometimes you don't need it because you know the ways out of it. So the way the industry has opened up, I would say, leave apart the commerce part. People are feeling insecure about cinema, only looking at the commerce part. But looking at the execution part, I think now is the best time to come up with a lot of small projects will be coming up in the next year and a half, which means a lot of the number of projects are going to be more because people need content to consume. We are, if you see in the past 1 year, take a platform like Amazon Prime. I'm just talking about feature films. Then you don't even have to think about short films. It's a huge market out there. The
Right.
number of content that comes up every month is increasing. Now it's slowly coming to a point where we are looking up to Amazon releases on a Friday rather than a theater release on a Friday. So when is Tufan coming up? When is Malik coming up? When is the so what happens is it also breaks the barriers. So as much as I'm interested in Tufan, I'm interested in a Malayalam movie called Malik, or in an anthology that is going to come up in sometime called Navarasa, which is being made by Mani Ratnam. So everything is equally accessible for everybody. So if you're an ardent follower of films, everything is available for me. Second thing, at the same time, if you are a creator of films, now is the right time to knock the doors of a lot of producers saying that I have a film, I have a script with me, which can, which can be done in a shoestring budget. If you have something like that, now is the right time. Go for it. Beg, borrow, steal, put your money, go for it. Even I'm going to do that because it will come back right now. It's difficult to say right now, but it sounds like a crazy idea to be talking about right now. But I'm really positive about it.
So
So
immense opportunities are there in the field of filmmaking, and I'm sure our young filmmakers who are making short films, short videos, or very short documentaries nowadays. I see about either wildlife or even these vlogs are there. So there are people who are creating these stories around. In a form of films. So that is also wonderful. So thank you so much, sir, for your time. And I'd really like to thank ma'am also. She's been here, and she's a founder with the Ayjo's Nova. So would like to thank Ayjo's Nova team for coordinating and organizing this wonderful workshop. I would also like to inform you all about our upcoming workshop, which is with Mr. Niranjan Kumar. He's a 3D generalist, and we are going to have this workshop on digital sculpting to prepare for MECAT with Reliance. So that's happening tomorrow. So we'll see you tomorrow, 11:30 a.m. on digital sculpting. And Ms. Rosine Anthony, thank you so much for organizing this world's wonderful workshop.
Thank you, Pooja. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
You take care, stay safe, and enjoy. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.
thank you, Pooja. Thank you.